Good morning. Wow, is there enough light? Let's see. Let me turn up the light a little bit. Here we are. Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw Goldman. It is the 12th of August, 2019. I'm letting my critters walk in and out of the room today, in case you hear tippy toes. They seem to want to be involved today, and today I didn't feel like I wanted to lock them out of this room. They like to participate sometimes in sessions, and I guess sometimes in shows. So currently I have 2 dogs and 3 cats in this room, and so it could get interesting. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you joined me here on this Monday morning. I'm going to have one more cup of coffee. Yes, I'm a coffee drinker. I love my coffee. Hi, Jolie. Hi, Malik. Hi, Jason and Luna Rose. Hi, good afternoon where you are. Obviously not where I am. It's morning. So what did I title this show? Time Loops and Matrix Glitches. And yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on, and I thought it might be fun to talk about it a little bit. And so when I do these kinds of shows and I talk about this, some of what's happening is in my community too, and not only my social media community. Yeah, there's a cat actually being very busy over there. Not only in my social media community, but in the quantumhealers.com community of practitioners. We're having some lively discussions about exactly this, the matrix glitching. And I know I'm seeing the camera change from blue to yellow, and my husband says it's because of my glasses. I don't know if it is or not. Is it? See, look, no, it's not, right? It has to do with the sunshine and the inside light. Well, anyway, sorry. I know it has something to do with the light. My glasses are a pain, but I don't know that they're causing that particular trouble. Sorry, my brain is kind of everywhere. But I wanted to talk about some of these matrix glitches. I thought it would be fun to share with you. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Amy. Hi, Linda. So many of my practitioner friends join me on this these live videos, and I want to thank you always for your support and everything else that you bring to our community. And so some of you who've been on the forum know that we've been talking about some of this stuff, right? So I actually printed out some stuff so I wouldn't forget some of the things I wanted to mention. But let's start with some of the bigger things. Unless there's that expression, living under a rock. And it seems like a funny expression, but I actually think it's kind of cool. Unless you're living under a rock, you know about Jeffrey Epstein. And actually those people who didn't know about Jeffrey Epstein and kind of on my Facebook and some other places, what? I don't know who that is. There's a part of me that's like, wow, that's actually kind of cool that, you really have divorced yourself from media. I don't watch mainstream news, haven't for many, many years. I don't even know how to turn on the television here. My grandchildren are here for a few more days. And if and when they want to turn the TV on, they got to go find someone else. I literally don't know how. It takes 2 remotes, and I refuse. If you can't go up and just go blink and turn something on, I don't want any part of it. I don't want any part of it anyway, but I don't even know how to turn on the TV. But of course, I interact with people in different ways on the internet. And so there's this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing going on. And people are up in arms all over the place about this. And what I wanted to mention about that is I'm not going down the political route of discussion here. Not at all. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine, when I posted it on Facebook, a little bit, it was like, unless, it's a kind of an awake test. If you're awake, you think something fishy is going on. And if you maybe, are still taking mainline, that's funny, mainstream news kind of seriously, you accept that this fellow committed suicide in jail. Here's the really cool part. So it's not political. I'm not political. I don't care about one side or the other of the aisle. I think there's buffoons everywhere. And I think, like many of us do, that the whole thing is a circus to keep us from focusing on what's really going on. That's my position. Which is, I'm done debating anyone about anything. I'm not interested in debate. Debate doesn't interest me at all, one way or another. I used to think it was kind of lively and fun. Nope, not interested in it. Here's the cool part. People who have been swallowing that Kool-Aid for maybe their entire lives are not now. I think this particular incident in droves is waking up people, and the goosebumps that are coming up on my body kind of confirms that. What do you all think? I think so. There are people out there who are now talking about being awake that I never knew were awake. People who, on my periphery of contacts who are not into metaphysical, spiritual things, who now are saying some things that indicate to me they have an understanding of the larger forces at play in all of our lives. Hi, Britt. Oh, Britt is you were our winner, weren't you, for the BQH class a few days ago on my birthday present to you. So hi to you and Scylla and Michelle and Susan. Good morning, everyone. Jen didn't know who he was either. Well, good for you. Really good for you. But be that as it may, it was an indication of what's going on in the world. And I wanted to ask some of you all out there, what do you guys think of this? Do you all know Tina Zion? I think her book is right up here. Let me see. Tina, are you up here? Yeah. Tina Zion. Y'all know this lady? Become a Medical Intuitive, Tina Zion. She's written a couple books. I went to Michigan earlier this year to take a class from that lady. And I was there with two of my colleagues, Maddie Miller and Alice Mixer. And we took a class, medical mediumship, right? And why am I bringing that up? Because medical mediumship is a form of mediumship, meaning, being able to tap into energies sometimes of people who are gone and people who maybe gone around them, or being able to tap into energies of the body, et cetera, et cetera. What do you all think about Epstein? After taking this course, which, I was wildly successful in some ways and wildly not in other ways, it was a fascinating course. I loved it. And it gave me some confidence to continue to consider expanding my skills in tapping into energies beyond what just happens in quantum healing sessions. So one of the things that occurred to me was, as this news about Epstein's coming out, I tapped into his energy. I don't think he's dead. Now, I don't know if I'll ever know, if you'll ever know, if any of us will ever know exactly what happened there. I don't know. I don't think he's dead. And there's a few people out there who I've heard say that, or just feel it, the energetic sense. When you do this work as a quantum healer, I've been doing this for such a long time. And I understand now about, the streams of energy of either the being in front of you living their current life, or past lives that come in where they experience that, or other energies, right? There's like these streams, this beam of energy, and you can tap into that. Sometimes more than other times, some people do it a little easier than other people, etc. But when I tap into Epstein's energy, I don't get that he's gone. I really wonder what some of you out there think of that. Yeah, Joan says he's too valuable. There's a lot of different theories out there, and again, I'm not going to really go into that because there's other places to go for that. There's a lot of people talking about this in ridiculous, hyper crazy ways, and then in some very thoughtful ways. So there's it's all across the board there, but my perspective right now, it seems like he's still here, and that's pretty interesting. Of course, now look back into history. There's a lot of people that we were told passed away that possibly didn't, and just something else happened to them. And again, a lot of figures from history, so we don't always know what's going on. And I think that's one of the reasons, like the whole debate thing. That whole debate thing just kind of bores me, because unless you're right there, and for goodness sake, even if you are right there, seeing things in front of your eyes, things are changing. And that's one of the things I want to talk about today. So quantumhealers.com, for those of you who may not know, we are a directory of healers, healing practitioners of all kinds. We started out supporting just Dolores Cannon students, and then we expanded after her death. We became independent, and we expanded. And so we have all kinds of practitioners on our website. We also have a blog where people from our practitioner community submit blogs, and we release them sometimes once a week, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, 4 times, whatever. Well, those of you who are subscribed to our blog may have noticed that for the past several days, you've gotten the same exact blog over and over and over again. And what's really interesting, I don't know how to share a screen on live YouTube yet, but I'm going to see if I can show you this here on my phone. But the blog that got repeated over and over again is by a good friend of mine, Mario Radinger, and it was actually called The Portal. It was a brief summary of a session, and I thought I would share this with you. It was about a session he had with this woman, and she wanted to know about a mysterious event. And this happens a lot in sessions. People come and they want to hear what happened during that weird dream, or that time on the highway, or that missing time. And I've had many clients who've asked that kind of question myself. But she had a strong urge to stop the vehicle and make her way to this giant rock in a nearby forest, but it was getting dark, and she had her toddler with her. So she said, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. But something about that event, even though she didn't even have missing time, she didn't go anywhere, she didn't go to the rock, she didn't do any of that. She wanted to know, because she could feel it, that would have been something big, right? So while she's in the session, we learned that in this evening, the rock, a portal had been opened up by the more evolved human civilization living underneath the surface of our planet, inviting the young woman and a few others to join and live with them. It had been a decisive moment for her and her family's life path, as she would have had to leave everyone behind. The higher self stated quite a number of people who go missing actually disappear by following invitations to the inner earth. There's some nefarious ways to go missing, human trafficking, etc. We talk about that. People think abduction and off the planet. But, here's an interesting thing to think about, right? In the client's case, she decided against the invitation for her and her family, and that way she forfeited a very special experience. But then, of course, her family didn't have to wonder what happened, what happened to her. And she gets to fulfill her life contracts in another way. So we published this blog, The Portal, a few days ago. It's almost like, it's so funny to talk about this. But this blog has been now sent to our subscribers, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times. It just keeps getting sent to them. Now, we are not on a WordPress blog site. The platform that we're on, we cobbled together to suit our needs, but the blog that gets sent out through the platform that is basically our directory, our yellow pages for healers. It has a blog feature, but it's not robust. It's not the purpose. Hey, cat, hey, don't. Sorry. It's not robust. It's not the main focus of this software, and it's got stuck in this. It got stuck sending this portal thing out, and so actually yesterday we're trying to fix this. We're looking into it. We have our developer looking into it. We kind of can't stop it right now, and so I decided, not only as a test, but to try this out yesterday and to let everyone know. Oh gosh, you can't see that. No, you can't. Let me see if I turn down the light, if that will help. Probably not, but wait, maybe, yeah. Look, well, kind of, yeah. There we go. So I wrote this blog yesterday: time loops, matrix glitches, or just a bug. Basically saying, gee, sorry everyone that it keeps getting sent out, because we're trying we're trying to fix it. We don't mean to bother you. And I've had some people say, is everything okay? And you know what's funny? So this one lands on our website, but it's not under the blog category, and it didn't go out with the subscriptions. So all of you out there who I tried to say, yes, I know, didn't get this message. It got stuck in a time loop, a vortex, a portal. But that's one of the things I want to talk about today. One of the things that we're talking about on our forum is this idea of matrix glitching and time looping. And there's all these different stories, and I thought I would touch on them a little bit. So one of the people who was talking about it, I have this, and I've had it for a number of years, but I'm having it more and more lately. Let me know if this sounds familiar to you. This is my wonderful friend and colleague, Allison Brown. Her husband, who's quite connected, got quite the open third eye in a number of ways, has now seeing overlays often on things like people and things like cars. And I see them with cars, like car situations. So for instance, for me, if I come up to, it's usually an intersection, and I can come up to an intersection and I can see a different version of how, when the light changes or people stop for the stop sign, a different version of how it plays out. Somebody running a stop sign or going through a red light or a yellow light, and kind of the horrific aftermath of that. It's brief, it's light, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened to me more and more lately. And it's interesting because I have to really keep my focus driving, knowing not to let any of those overlays, change what my 3D choices are in my truck going through that intersection, even though I see this, little yellow car rolling over into the ditch over there and catching on fire when a semi goes by. But it didn't really happen, right? The semi just went on and the yellow car went on and it was all fine. And I'm like, whoa, and thinking about that. So here's the really interesting part about all of this, right? We want to expand. We want to become multidimensional. This is what being multidimensional is. It's seeing these things. And there's so many people who want this so much. They want to experience other realms. Well, think about how that can affect your day-to-day life moving through the world. If every intersection I went to, that happened, that could kind of mess you up, right? And this is, I think, also why, how so many of us have talked about things are going to change overnight or it's going to go gradually. And a lot of people thought 2012, boom, we're going to be in the next place, or some of these other eclipses and portals and vortexes and, all of that. I think we as a collective, or the one reality that we're experiencing right now, or at least the one that I'm experiencing, it's a gradual thing. And this is why it's just momentary and it's just a little bit, right? But it's more and more as we get more and more used to it. And here's some of the other reports that I've read about that. So here's a story from actually my friend Wendy Liu, who is not in our community of healers, but she's a Facebook friend. And she posted, I think this was just yesterday, she posted a picture of her desk, and she was working on a project and she needed something. And it was this big roll of white paper, like this. She needed this roll of white paper. She got it out and was gathering these other things for a project. And she goes out of the room, she comes back in, and the paper's like gone. And she's thinking, well, did she carry it somewhere or did she something? And she looks all over and she can't find it. She can't find it. She kind of gives up. She's mystified. She doesn't know what's going on. And she says she walks into the room to the desk the next day, and there's the paper, big paper roll laying right on the desk. Now skeptics or people who are really still insistent on the very solid, quote, in quotes, 3D reality will simply explain that away as a failure of human memory. And more of us know that's not what's happening. That's really not what's happening here at all. And it hasn't been what's been happening for a very long time, but we're finally going, well, wait a second, right? What's going on here? But you've got to make peace with it, and you've got to understand how to live with what this is going, to do in your day-to-day lives. Some of the other things that have been reported are overlays of faces. People talking to people who seem to be elderly, and suddenly they're younger, and then they're middle-aged, and then they're elderly again. The first time I ever saw that was in a session with a good friend of mine named Marcia McCoy. She was doing what she called Source in Silence at the time. It was just a kind of an eye-to-eye meditation. And I was watching her, and I watched her. It was almost like an egg cracking. There was and then like there's this, but it was the third eye kind of stuff, right? It wasn't, actually physically seeing her head crack open there. It was like an overlay. And then when the thing came off, whatever that was, she was a gray-haired, quite elderly Native American woman. It was astonishing. But this is the kind of overlay image that people are getting now, just in their lives, just walking around doing their thing. And I really wonder how many of you might be experiencing that too. Let's see, what are some of the other things going on? This one. So big things, big solid things changing. The first time I ever heard of this particular thing, which has to do with buildings, what's more bigger solid than that, right? A building. And I remember the year because I was still working, primarily I was doing my quantum healing sessions in Austin, Texas. I was between Kansas and Texas, still doing sessions only in person. Thank goodness I'm not restricted to that anymore. But I would drive down to Austin because that's where my clients were. That's where, people knew that I practiced. And Austin had far more of a community who was interested in this kind of work than here, which is rural Kansas. And it's still that way. But anyway, I was down there and I was working out of an apartment, and I have a vivid memory of this particular session because it was in that apartment. And the woman was telling me that she had driven to come to see me on Route 222 up to the apartment for her session. And she was just blown away because she talked about there was a certain place on Route 222, and she'd been driving that interstate, that highway, whatever, for many years that had some sort of glass building. I believe she told me it was a glass building. Odin, you're making too much noise. A glass building, and she said it's gone. She said she even, like, I think she took an exit to drive around to see if there had been demolition or something, but the entire building was gone. And then we thought about it, we talked about it. She says, well, I'm going to, let you know when I drive back, because I'm going to go back that way too, if something has changed about that. It was the first time I'd ever heard of anyone talking about something big, like a building, just suddenly being there 1 minute and gone the next, or being there one day and gone the next. And sure enough, when she went back, she texted me and told me, maybe it wasn't even a text. We didn't do texting back then. Sorry, I'm trying to be very precise with my details. It must have been an email, that the building wasn't there, still wasn't there. Now, here's my take on that. And I love this because it has to do with our work, right? So those of us who do this work, QHHT or BQH, increasingly find that our clients and their higher selves often begin the shift before they ever hit the session. And that often our higher selves and their higher selves come together. We have experiences. There are things to talk about. My sense is the woman already had made a decision, already had decided to shift timelines because of her session, right? And when she drove up, didn't see that building, didn't see it to go back. And that was just setting her up to go through what we did through the session, because she decided to go on a different timeline. And so that was what I've always kind of thought about that. But there's more and more about buildings going on. And let's see, I wrote this down somewhere. I thought I did. Okay, and now I'm not sure exactly. Oh, I know who it was. It was Michael Harp. Michael Harp, who is a member of our community, was talking about that she drives a certain road to the beach all the time, and she takes a certain exit every time because that's where she gets gas on the way to the beach. She's in North Carolina, I believe. I'm pretty sure I have that right. And she says she always takes that exit because there's always a gas station right there, right off the side, right off the exit. And she takes the exit and she gets off and she pulls into the driveway, which has always been a gas station, and it ends up being a Burger King, she says. And there's a gas station across the street, but she's sitting in a Burger King restaurant wondering what's going on. She said she drove around the block twice trying to figure out what had happened. I think more and more of that is happening. And here's a really fun one. When it happens to two people at the same time, and this is more and more, you can't blame a faulty human memory when something like this happens. And I just read this one again. The quantum healers get together and we chat about sessions and things like that, but we also talk about metaphysical topics in depth, like this one. And so this is also a quote, a mention from Alison Brown. She and her husband were at a holistic festival, I guess, and they were moving through the crowds or whatever, and they passed a table. There was a woman who was packing up a tablecloth and was finishing folding it up and putting it away. And then they stopped for a moment, I guess, in the next like 30 seconds, and they turn around, they happen to step back that way. And the same woman with the same tablecloth was sitting there with the tablecloth laid out, like, 2 seconds later. The tablecloth was completely back on with no indication that she'd been folding it up and putting it away just, a second or two before. And they talked with each other about, did you see that? Yeah, I saw that. And that got me really thinking about, having a witness to these kinds of things. I don't know about those of you out there who've experienced supernormal events, is kind of what I like to say and what I like to talk about them. Almost always, at least in my case, almost always, they are experienced alone, right? And we do the logical thing. We question what our memory is. We question what's going on. And if we tell anyone, we get questioned. Well, did you have anything to drink? Are you on any drugs? Were you really tired? Could you possibly have slept? You're hallucinating. Maybe you had some sort of brain seizure, da 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 da. Sure, any of those things could be the explanation in any number of cases and stories, but not all of them. And this is happening more and more, and this helps to wake us up. So I happen to be thinking about this, and I went to go look at another thread on Reddit that I was following, and I jumped on this thread that explained another matrix glitch. I don't know if it's recent or not, but the reason I bring it up is because it was two people. So two people, I mean, just think about it. It's a time loop. It really is, time loop matrix glitch. They're in an urban environment of some kind. They step out of their building, walk down the street. They go to a party together, this man and this woman. And then they decide to go home after a while or whatever. And who knows what went on in the party. And I don't know any of those details, but they're just talking about walking back, which they say, it's like a 1.5 minute walk or something like that. And they're walking and they're walking and they're talking, they're walking and they're talking, and they're realizing that they should be home by now. They've been talking too long for them to not be home already. So they start paying attention. And I think the two things they talked about was a traffic cone and I don't know, something else. But they pass this traffic cone and they're going, what's going on? And they're looking up and they're looking at the buildings next to them. And what they said, they then noticed happening. So there's a string of like 4 or 5 buildings. They're walking past them. So they walk, and they're a string of mostly identical buildings, I guess, maybe apartment complexes, buildings or whatever. And they walk past about 3 of the 5 or whatever, however many exactly there were. And as soon as they would get like to the 3rd one, they'd be back at the number 1 building again. And they would just do it over and over again. And they were both noticing this and talking about it and freaking out as anybody would, right? Wouldn't you? I would. I mean, what the heck? It's like Groundhog Day, right? But, in that little tiny slot. And there's been a lot of people who talk about it. And I guess they just kept passing that same cone in that same building over and over and over again and deciding, well, what do we even do about this? And I guess, the typical thing that breaks that is to do something different, run, turn around, try to get out of it somehow, kind of breaks it. I mean, think about, the Groundhog Day, Bill Murray, all the different things he tried to do to break the Groundhog Day. So this has been reported by humans for a very long time, this sort of time looping matrix glitch. So, and then we had another wonderful session reported by our South African friend, Tony Seat, this morning about a timeline watcher in his session. And I think time, is really, it's really in front of us right now. And for those of you who remember your dreams, or for those lucky few of you who have lucid dreams. Now, I have lucid dreams sometimes. I certainly don't have them all of the time. I wish I had them a little more often. But if you know what a lucid dream is, you know that in a lucid dream, you can make decisions that affect what's going on in your dream world. Now, not always can you make the exact effect, but your thinking changes some of what's going on in your dream world. And this is, moving into the upper densities, the upper dimensions, and the astral realm. And so what's going on with us right now is a little of that, right? It's we're bumping up against the next realm, and in these moments we're able to practically move into that kind of astral place. This is really disturbing for some people who are empaths, who are fearful, who have issues that can attract magnetically, situations that wouldn't be desired by any of us. So this is another, and I'm not the only one to say this. This is just another opportunity to really watch your thoughts, because what you're thinking affects things in this world, and now quicker than ever, kind of like in a lucid dream. And I don't know why. Susan says we sometimes wake up feeling like we battled with a truck. This is true. There's a lot of things going on at nighttime in the astral realm. I was thinking for some reason today. Well, I always think about Dolores Cannon. I mean, she's just always there with me. But I was thinking about how she might react to some of the things that we talk about in our quantum healers community, because we have opened up. We talk to more people. We don't only support QHHT practitioners. We support practitioners of all kinds. And some of these practitioners are really focusing on spirit releasement. And Dolores wouldn't allow that conversation back when she was making up the rules on the forum. She simply wouldn't allow it. She shut down the conversation. And she was adamant. She would tell us that she didn't find these things in sessions, and that it had to do with people's own fears and pain bodies manifesting. And quite frankly, that's been my experience. I've been doing this work full time since 2008. Have not yet, and I will say yet, have not yet had to deal with that. Dolores claimed the same, but I have colleagues who have much different experiences. But I was thinking today of somebody who was challenging her in a class, and I remember them saying, Dolores, I've seen them. You have to know they exist. My client, it was just basically a debate and an argument. And again, I watch these things in an interesting way anymore. I'm not interested in debating, stepping into one, refereeing one, participating in one, instigating one, not interested in debates. But I do remember some of the very cryptic things she would say. And I think this, was fairly cryptic. She would say, I would really watch out what you're going out there and looking for. Be careful what you're searching for. Be careful what you're interested in. And so I think she knew a lot more than what she talked about. And there was 1, 2, or 3 things in Dolores's world and life that if the subject came up, she would just shut it down. I mean, she would say her party line and she would just shut it down. There was no talking about it. There was no expansion. She just wasn't interested in talking about it. And this was one of them. She simply wouldn't talk about it. And that's one of the reasons, actually, I'm very proud of our community now, because we don't tell people what they can and can't talk about. So even though I still, to this day, have nothing much to contribute to the practitioners who talk about things like entity attachments, if they want to talk about that, they can. If they want to compare notes, they can. And even in my own BQH course, I provide an outline of possible approaches, but I cannot reference my own experiences because I don't have any. I simply don't have any. And that, quite frankly, is fine by me. Not interested. And what we found is that, practitioners tend to specialize kind of in a way. There's some people who that's all they find. but I caution anyone out there, and practitioners especially, to make blanket statements like 98% of people have entity attachments on them or whatever. Well, really, what are you basing that on? Well, all my sessions. Well, if I based a statement like that on all my sessions, I would say 100% of people don't. But I'm not going to make that statement because that's just my version of my reality with my clients, right? So far. And I will say that so far for sure, because who knows? I think anyone who makes blanket statements that categorically claim anything like that, I don't know. I find them difficult to believe, because who knows? We all do our best and we all try, but we don't know everything. Yeah, so a lot of people are talking about, a lot of Mandela effects and a lot of other things. And dreams, the dreams are still coming. And one of the dreams I had over the weekend was, I'm always in a helper position. And the dreams I had over the weekend had to do with vehicles and cars, but I was also helping some of these people get out of cars and move to a different area in my dreamscape where there were planes. And I mean, I love the symbology, right? So in my own dreams, and in many people's dreams, a car, a vehicle, is it a boat, is it a car, is it a bicycle, whatever it is symbolic for the body, your body vehicle. So when I dream about my truck, and yes, I have a truck, an F-250, a big old truck. When I dream about my truck, I know I'm kind of dreaming about my body, some of the things going on in my body. And I've recently gone on a little detox detour. And why? I had a dream about opening up my truck and bringing my garden hose and spraying my truck out with water. Now, that's about as clear of a message to me that I could possibly imagine. But in these other dreams that I've had, I was helping people, get out of their cars and make their way to their planes. That, to me, talks about being on a higher trajectory, a faster trajectory, higher vibrating vehicle for our bodies, right? I think that's what's going on. What's also interesting to me personally too is there wasn't any planes for me. I mean, I was helping people getting in their planes, and there was a little bit like, well, where's my plane? But I knew that my job was getting people from their cars to their planes. And I was on the clock. I'm still here. I'm still here doing that. Maybe I get to get on the plane later. Hi, Donna. Hi, Maureen. Oh, gosh, it's so nice that you all have kept me company here this morning while I had my last cup of coffee and checked in. Again, those of you who've been subscribing to our blog, forgive the many versions of the portal coming your way. We do hope to kind of have that figured out in some way very soon. We had to cobble together our platforms, our forum, our directory, and our classes. They're all on a forum platform, a community platform, and a class platform, but we're actually working really hard. We've been working on it, gosh, a year and a half, a long time now, to create a single solitary place where all of these things happen in one place and where we have a little bit more control. Right now, we're just customers too. We're customers to those 3 platforms, and we kind of bring it all to you together at quantumhealers.com. But pretty soon we'll have our very own unique standalone platform, and it'll be a lot easier for everyone to navigate and deal with. So I thank you all for supporting us while we still are in the building stage of this. And thank you all for your support, practitioners and clients and and people who just tune in to hear me yak away here in the mornings. It's very nice that you all have showed up. Well, I'm going to get on with my day. I just looked up there. I've been live for 44 and 22 seconds. That's a perfect time, I think, to sign off for the day. Have a great Monday. Pay attention to what's going on. Look carefully at intersections. Pay attention to your dreams. Let me know what's going on in your world. I always want to hear it. And of course, you can find me or more practitioners who do this wonderful work of quantum healing at quantumhealers.com. Thanks for checking in, everyone. I'm going to talk to you later. Bye-bye.